Welcome to EFRO Talks. With me is Professor Francisco Rodriguez Jimenez. He's a brilliant scholar. He's a good friend. He's also a partner of Fair Observer in his avatar as the person who began the Global Studies project in the University of Salamanca. And who better than a Spaniard to make sense of the recent Spanish elections? So, Francisco, welcome. Please tell us what has just happened in Spain and paint us a picture of Spanish politics.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Atul, for giving me the opportunity to share this idea, this conversation with you and your audience. First thing to say is that Spanish election last Sunday were not that different from other elections in other countries. What I want to mean with that is that there is a huge polarization in the Spanish society. Regrettably, as happened in the United States, where I was living last year, as it happens in Israel, let's say,
exactly,
or in other countries in the world. So my point, and I say again, regrettably, is that we are living in a very hectic, polarized world. Because how you can understand that the current government, which was advancing through a very difficult time as it was the pandemic, and then the crisis and then the pandemic, or another factor indicator. Spanish inflation now is one of the lowest in the European Union context. In spite of all those economic factors, he lost the election. Why so? Rephrasing the famous quote, Bill Clinton, is the economy stupid, right? That was in the 90s. Regrettably, now, I think it's the identity or the cultural thing stupid, if I might say. Why so? Because this polarized atmosphere is preventing people to see the real factor, the economy, or as I say, the inflation rate, or how the country is dealing with the war.
All right, so let me stop you there. And so the current prime minister lost, and he belongs to the Social Democratic Party. So how many parties are there in Spain? What are the main parties? How many seats are there in your parliament? A lot of people watching in the US or even India will not know about this. So educate us.
Sure. So the parliament in Spain has 350 seats. So that is the general number, 350.
And it's a parliamentary system. So the leader of the biggest party, or the leader of the majority in the parliament, gets to be prime minister, who then runs the country. And of course, the country is a constitutional monarchy.
That's it. So there are 4 or 5 big parties, which are on the center right, the Conservative Party, Partido Popular. On the center left, you have PSOE, Social Democrat Party. And then you have far right, Vox, and then far left, Sumar. Those are the 4 big parties. This is important to be underlined, with representation in all the 51 provinces.
Understood.
But in certain regions, as Basque Country and Catalonia, there are nationalists, some of the independent party, which, if you look to the whole picture of Spain, with an electoral vote number of 25 million people, that is the general figure. In these 2 regions, Basque Country and Catalonia, there are on Catalonia, RC, ERC, Esquerra Republicana, which are left, far left, independent. Then you have some more center-right, which are Junts. The leader of that party is actually, and this is a kind of paradox, we can talk about that later on, is in exile now, is in Brussels, and is Carles Puigdemont, right? And then on Basque Country, you have 2 national pro-independent with different grade party, which are PNV on the center-right side of the political spectrum, and then you have Bildu on, I would say, far left. So you have 4 big parties in the whole country, and then 2 small parties in the 2 regions, Catalonia and Basque country.
Understood. And Basque country has had a history of separatism, and a part of Basque country is in France and straddles the Pyrenees. And there has been a terrorist group called ETA in the past. So it has a problematic relationship with Spain. Now, of course, things are better. And Catalonia, more recently, for those of our viewers who don't know, has had a strong separatist movement. And in fact, Pep Guardiola, the most famous Spaniard of Catalonia today, was wearing a yellow ribbon in support of that movement. And that is why Carlos is in exile, because they conducted a referendum against Madrid's wishes. And basically, Spain does not allow for succession. And that is where the matter stands right now.
Sure. So let's have a bit of historical perspective to that referendum. That occurred in 2017. And it was illegal referendum because the Spanish constitution doesn't allow that. The problem was not that it was illegal, but the violence associated and some riots and demonstration in the street. As a result, this leader of the Junts, previously Feijóo, he escaped because otherwise he would have been legally prosecuted. Is in Brussels. But the problem is that occurred, as I said, 2017. 6 years after, if you look to the figures, the number of people in the whole region of Catalonia, 5 million people voting in Catalonia last Sunday. Well, that was the general figure, less people vote. So the result, surprisingly enough, tells that more than approximately 60–70% of the population didn't vote for separate nationalist party.
They voted for the mainstream 2 parties.
That's it. That is a very important takeaway, because the 2 small national parties, both Esquerra Republicana and Junts, together they got less votes than the Social Democrat Party led by Pedro Sánchez. That is a key point. Why so? Because now, with this parliamentary system in which you have to go to Madrid court and have 176 as the magic number, the Conservative Party will have not that number. No matter how much
they have. How many do they have?
They have now 132. So they won, last Sunday they won, but it was a very weak, or even we could say Pyrrhic victory, because Alberto Núñez Feijóo was expecting to have at least 150, 155. Conversely, he got 132. To get to the 176, of course, now is more difficult. His natural ally, which is Vox, far right, got 32. So 132 plus 32 is 169, if I'm not wrong.
So they're still 7 short.
That's it. Those 7, they are craving to get those 7. But the problem is because the conservative center-right party allied with the extreme right, now they have Alberto Núñez Feijóo very little space to maneuver to convince some other conservative, very small party which has 1 or 2 votes to give them the vote. Still, he missed 3. So it's currently, I wouldn't say impossible, because nothing is impossible in politics, but it's hard.
So can't they just buy the votes, as in India? Can't they give sacks of money to members of parliament and they will say, okay, we'll now vote for you?
No, listen, this is a well important point.
Yeah.
There are, of course, positive and negative effect in this heated political atmosphere that I described at the beginning. The positive aspect is that the democracy is still robust in Spain. It's difficult to manage when you have a political spectrum atomized and you have these different variables. The good thing is that democracy is solid because the system is quite fair. You could think that in other examples, the big party could try to bribe people to get those 7 seats needed. It's almost impossible that occur because the parties in Spain are very historically rooted. What I want to mean with that, I think it's kind of risky comparison, but let's think about US politics. Democrats, Republicans, they have not, as far as I understand, you can correct me, they don't have a solid representation in the whole territory. Like you cannot go to the Democrat Party office headquarters in Nebraska or in a little town in Wyoming. You can do that in Spain. You can go to a very little town, and I urge you to come to visit with your own eyes, that you can go to any little town in Spain and you can go to the headquarters of the Conservative Party or the Social Democrat Party.
No, I have been, and it's been a while since I was in Spain last, but one of the things that strikes you is that parties are truly pan-national, whereas in the US, you have red and blue now. There are areas where the Democrats simply cannot win, and there are areas where the Republicans simply cannot win. And far too often, they don't even talk to each other. And that is the most scary bit about the US. And I was on Capitol Hill on January 6th, as you know, and I wrote that piece that you were very complimentary about. And so I'm seeing this firsthand in Washington.
Absolutely. That's why I say, how can I explain to a person from Nigeria, Kenya, or Buenos Aires, or Chile that the confidence, and I would say also actually the faith on the political party is very strong in this country.
Understood. Now, just to interrupt you, which is why it is difficult for them to suddenly, after the election, just say we support the center-right party. So the Popular Party may have won the election, but it is a Pyrrhic victory because they are just short. And the other regional parties are unwilling to support them. Now, could the fact that they allied with Vox have come back to bite them in the rear?
Absolutely. And actually, there are some press commentators, newspaper articles arguing or defending a kind of cross-party alliance in between the winning party, PP, with some temporary, even limited support from the Social Democrat representative, which actually happened in Germany.
Yes.
Never, ever in Spain so far. As I said before, there are pros and cons. I would say, sometime at least, it would be positive, that cross-party alliance. Why so? If you put together the vote of the Social Democrat Party, 122, together with the 132 of the Conservative Party, is 258, which represent, listen the number, 73 or 74 of the whole country. These two parties cannot, apparently, they cannot deal with each other. They cannot agree in important basic thing. It's kind of outrageous for the citizen, you know. But at the same time, in the establishment, both establishment of the political parties, they are afraid that if they do so, if they negotiate with each other, they will lose kind of internal power. So it's more a question of hierarchy and establishment than the will of the majority of the people. That is my guess. That if you ask to these 73, 74 of the population that have voted for these two big parties? The answer would be yes, you should negotiate when there are things that affect to the whole country.
Yeah, but pardon me for bringing up history, but I cannot but think of the Spanish Civil War. In Spain, the left and the right historically have been very divided. And I can see that divide sometimes, within families itself. I mean, I live close to an extraordinarily brilliant Spanish lawyer, Veronica Pastor, and it's fascinating to me to see in her own family, how one side of the family or one brother was on one side and another brother was another side, and that sort of cleft I've seen in many families, Spanish families that I know, and that division didn't end just because Franco died. So in a way, perhaps are we seeing a continuation of that divide?
Yes and no. No, if you look to again number of the whole population and the whole vote system. But it's true that actually the far right party box is precisely igniting and putting that topic on the table, trying to recover the idea that, well, Franco dictatorship wasn't that bad. The democratization of Spain and the transition to democracy has been unfair for those solid norm and value that Franco tried to enforce. That is out of question. But that Vox party represent no more than 10% of the whole population. 10.
Hold fire. Now, Vox has declined dramatically in this election, hasn't it? And so has the far left, Podemos. So both far left and far right have gone down this time.
That's true. And that is also important to have this historical perspective. PP and PSOE were the only party in Spain up to 215. Well, there were other small parties, but they gained nothing in election. So there were only two big parties, as let's say in the case of United States. There was a myriad of very small parties, but they gained nothing in election. So what happened in 2015? Huge economic crisis, younger generation as myself or some people of my age that were desperately trying to get a job that didn't exist. And then these two big parties also, Partido Popular and Social Democrat PSOE, dealing with many, in some regions, corruption case. Was in that context in 2015 when two small parties emerged on the both sides. On the left, Podemos, and on the right side, Ciudadanos. You're right. That occurred from 2015 until this election. Why this election was a kind of exception to the rule? Because Social Democrat Party, led by Pedro Sánchez, I would say brilliantly spread the idea that if you don't stop now Vox, the extreme right, they will even overcome the Conservative Party, and therefore the more darkness part of the Spanish history, the dictatorship, could come back, could gain momentum. So many people, instead of voting for the the far left party Podemos, now converted into Alliance Sumar, they decide that perhaps it's more wise to vote for the establishment again, for the center left.
So the prime minister ran a pretty good campaign by that account.
Absolutely. Not only that,
but he still lost.
You're right. But that's why I said at the beginning, is the identity stupid? It's not the economy anymore. Because the figure of the inflation, the figure of last week, no, 2 weeks ago, International Monetary Fund predict Spain growing 2.5, which is still modest number, but much higher than France, Germany, or
Look, people don't vote comparatively. People vote if the price of onions, or in the case of Spain, perhaps the price of jamon goes up. And so if the price is going up, they are not comparing that the price has gone up by more in France or Germany or Israel or America. They feel the pinch in their pockets and therefore they vote.
Sure, you are totally right, Atul, but the point here is that inflation in Spain is one of the lowest in the European Union.
Sure, but it's still a problem.
It is a problem,
yes.
But my point here, and I want to quote a very brilliant book by a colleague I met in Lisbon, Carlos Melendez. Carlos Melendez, in a book, A Partisan, How People Vote in This Postmodern Society, he analyzed more than 20 elections, different countries, mainly in Latin America, but some other regions, some other part of the world. The conclusion, which is quite telling, in these last 5-6 years, the conclusion this 20 case analyzed is that the incumbent lost in 85-90% of the numbers of the situation. Why so? Because in this polarized society, we always want to like change now. Oh, these are ruining the situation. Oh, I want to change. Even if
so in India, there's a term for it. It's called the anti-incumbent advantage. And the joke is that you throw one set of bums out and install another. And people on the whole think all politicians are crook, they will feather their own nests, so just vote them out. And that seems to be a case that has inflicted not just, say, India and Latin American democracies, but also Spain as well.
Absolutely. Not only that, but another conclusion by Carlos Melendez is that the problem with these haters, partisan electoral system is that the alliance for afterwards are very fragile, because you don't really like the opponent that you have voted. You just hate the one who was in power while you were deciding to vote. So as a result, the new government has very little space to make a big, change, because it's like, again, more question of, oh, I dislike this guy, I dislike this government, I want to change, but change for what? Which is the direction.
Got it. Now, so Spain has an election where you have the center-right and the far-right in alliance, but they're short of the magic figure of 176.
Sure.
Does that mean that the prime minister could be back?
Yes, that is a very good question.
So Pedro Sánchez continues on his throne.
No, listen. So the first round, actually the king, because this is as you say, a monarchy parliamentary system.
Yeah.
The king we call more probably Alberto Núñez Feijóo, who was the winner. Yeah. Alberto will try to get this magic 176. If he fell in the first round, now it's very difficult, but nothing is impossible. If he fell in the second round, the number goes down from 176 to the number, the leader who has more yes than no. That equals to
around. It becomes a simple majority, not a 50% plus one majority. So from 176, then it is who gets more votes. It's a race, and whoever gets more votes than the other gets the top job.
And usually that simple majority number is 170, 169, so it's easier to get there than to the more ambitious 176. Yeah. And in that case would be current Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, who will have the possibility in that second round to form that simple majority, because more probably, the conservative leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo will fail in his attempt to get to the 176.
So will the parties in the Basque region and Catalonia not support Alberto Núñez?
Actually, some of the leaders of those small national parties, for instance, the center-right PNV, Partido Nacionalista Vasco in Basque Country, they already, actually it was yesterday or 2 days ago, they say, we will not pick up the cell phone of Alberto Núñez Feijóo trying to negotiate with that. They will not negotiate. They say, at least publicly. I don't know if, behind the curtain, they will start a negotiation. Publicly, the PNV say, we will not negotiate with the Conservative Party, Partido Popular. Why so? Because the alliance of Partido Popular with Vox, extreme right.
Got it. So it is coming to hurt them. This alliance is coming to hurt them after the election.
But listen, this is another important takeaway. The leader of Vox, Santiago Abascal, started his career in Basque Country and is always sending the message that I'm going to be very tough with these nationalists, people, independents, both in Catalonia and País Vasco. Ironically enough, that message is now jeopardizing the chances of Alberto Núñez Feijóo to create a government.
Okay, so this means that they could side with Pedro Sánchez, the social democrat leader.
Sure.
And does that mean that Carles Puigdemont comes back from Brussels?
I don't think so. Actually, he say probably with a little dose of irony, he wrote in his Twitter account 2 days ago, he said, because on Sunday after the election, people think, oh, Carles Puigdemont will have the key. We have the key number, the key seat to offer an alliance with Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. But right after the election on Sunday, the Spanish Supreme Court issued a new order of detention against him. Right after the election, probably not by coincidence. So he still has the power to tell his people in Catalonia, they got 7, right? Remember that figure, 7 seats in the national parliament in Madrid. Apparently, Puigdemont is leading them, these 7 people, from Brussels in the exile. But he will never, so far, be able to come back to Catalonia because the legal system, the legal Supreme Court, is trying to chase him. And that is another sign, I would say, of a solid or robust democracy that even nowadays, I don't know what will happen in 2 months, but nowadays, even if Prime Minister Sánchez want to entice Carles Puigdemont and say, hey, give me those 7-seat vote by, offering kind of legal status of neutrality or a possibility to come back to Spain, he cannot do that because the Supreme Court is chasing him.
So we have good separation of powers in Spain and the judiciary is independent.
Theoretically, and in certain cases, as this, yes. And okay. That is fair to say.
So good. So let me ask you about Pedro Sánchez. You said it's just identity politics, it's haters, and inflation is not that high as in the rest of Europe, but it's still there. What were the other reasons why he fell out of office, apart from just the anti-establishment factor? Surely there must be other underlying factors too, because in Europe we have seen a lot of parties have retained power. In particular, the Tory party never seems to lose an election these days.
Absolutely, you're right. You're right.
So, but hang on a minute, they are not in Europe anymore. They've had Brexit.
Sure, sure. So I would say that Pedro Sánchez has a better reputation outside of Spain than inside Spain.
Uh-huh.
Why
Why?
so? A kind of very brief historical understanding of that situation. Pedro Sánchez won an internal campaign in the Social Democratic Party against the old establishment or more social democrat balanced conservative section of the party. So he won against them in 2017. Then, surprisingly enough, in a kind of chess game in the parliament in 2019, he managed to convince other parties, other small party, to go against the previously conservative president Mariano Rajoy. That occurred in 2019. It was because the Conservative Party has a huge corruption scandal. So Sanchez persuaded other small party to make an alliance in the parliament against Mariano Rajoy. That is legally accepted, but it wasn't an election. So people from the very beginning claimed that he was a Machiavellian leader, that move in the parliament wasn't fair because Mariano Rajoy could have called an election, and that election would be the natural way to,
For a change of power.
For a change of power. So that was the beginning of Pedro Sánchez as a political leader. For many, unfair move to defeat Mariano Rajoy. Although it's constitutional from the legal point of view, is fair. If you have the vote to dispel a leader, you can do it. But that was the original sin of Pedro Sánchez. That original sin, together with the fact that in order to create that first government, he signed an alliance with both Basque and Catalan separatists or nationalists, a small party. That
so he's done this game before. He's slept with both the separatist parties to get to power.
That's it. So that is the original sin of Pedro Sánchez.
Yeah.
He became more popular in those regions, Basque Country and Catalonia, with the fact of becoming a kind of devil, the worst leader in all Spanish history in the rest of regions, included Andalucía, Castilla-La Mancha, Castilla-León, Extremadura, because he was like dealing with the devil of these nationalist parties that want to break the Spanish motherland, the Spanish state. Because of that, in this election, and I come back to my first point, it was more a question of identity for many people, that Pedro Sánchez, even if dealing more or less properly with the economy, he was about to break out the state by
break up the state, basically. He's a risk to the sovereignty of the Spanish state itself.
That's it, in Basque Country and in Catalonia. So that marked the difference for many people, included voters of the Social Democrat Party that disliked the idea of Catalonia becoming an independent state or Basque Country becoming an independent state. So that, I would say, is the key point why he's very unpopular, even inside Social Democrat traditional voters.
Understood. So now we've got two parties, both two main parties, both short of 176+1, which is the absolute majority required to rule. Does that mean Spain goes through a period of muddled coalition politics? Do we see a lot of horse trading and a lot of policy paralysis in Spain?
Well, as this first round will occur as far as I remember, August 17. So if Alberto Núñez Feijóo fell in that August 17 election in the parliament, then there is a administrative legal time of preparation for the second round of 2 months, if I'm not wrong. So it would be September, October, mid-October. If in the second round Pedro Sánchez fell, then we will need to go to a new election that will be called probably in early December. That is like the basic general calendar. Mid-August, first round, possibility for Alberto Núñez Feijóo. Second round, early October. And if Pedro Sánchez fell in the second round, then new election, which is detrimental, of course, because nowadays Spain is leading European Union. It's like that the country.
Yeah, rotating presidency. So Spain has the rotating presidency of the EU.
Until January 2024. So it's precisely in this moment in which Spain is leading the European Union that this kind of electoral turmoil is happening, which is, of course, not the best scenario for both Spain and European Union. Yeah.
Anyway, so we've covered a lot of ground. You've painted a very rich picture. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we should keep an eye out for?
Sure. I forgot to mention that another takeaway that I want to stress, extreme right in many countries in Europe, like Poland, Hungary, France, even Germany.
Exactly.
In last election, since 2015, 2016, sometimes they got up to 50, 40, 35% of the whole population. In this last Sunday election in Spain, the Vox far-right party, they lost 19 seats in the parliament, from 52 in 2019 to 32. That in percentage terms is no more than 11%. And I think that is a good news for Europe, in the sense that that defeat also affect to the math in the European Parliament. As you know, in the European Parliament, there are different families: conservative family, social democrats. So that result of Vox and the Pyrrhic victory of Partido Popular will affect definitely to the gain of the equation game in Brussels. And I think that is one, as I say, important result, because let's think about Hungary, Poland, or even France, where the extreme right were growing well and with chances even to become prime minister. That so far is over in Spain. I don't know how much time will take the Conservative Party to attract all Vox voter, but that is the current tendency.
But that's in Spain. In Europe, we don't know. In other countries, maybe the far right may be on the way up. It may go through an upward cycle.
Absolutely. But when Meloni won in Italy, people in Spain say, "Oh, this is going to happen in Spain. This is going to happen right now in Spain." Because
so no Lady Georgia in Spain.
Actually, what happened last Sunday was the opposite, that the equivalent to Meloni alliance, they lost a significant number, actually half of their political power in parliament. So
excellent. So thank you very much for spending time with Fair Observer. Thank you to our partners,
anytime.
Global Studies Program of the University of Salamanca.
And we want to welcome you soon in Salamanca.
Thank you. And we'll be doing more of these. So send us topics you'd like our great professor, Francisco Rodriguez Jimenez, to talk about. Thank you very much, and bye for now.
Thank you very much, Atul.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.